If you ask him about his career, Ken Squier would say that he's just an old storyteller. But in fact, he's the most important man in the history of auto racing on television. For nearly 50 years, Ken Squier has held the microphone and sold this sport to the benefit of everyone in this room. For over 40 years, he's been a racetrack operator. His career began at age 15 when he stood atop a flatbed truck at Morrisville, Vermont, and called a day's stock car race. Ken's still calling stock car races at his Thunder Road Speedway, doing exactly what he did on CBS television for more than 25 years and at Turner Broadcasting for more than 15. What he's done is to tell the stories of the men and women behind the wheel, stories of common people doing very uncommon things. Ken Squier has created his own platforms from which to speak. He's cut the deals to put auto racing on television, and then he's gone on the air himself to tell stories about racing people with all the color, all the drama, and all the emotion that we all know is there. Now, the Ken Squier that most folks know is the guy who brought the in-car camera to television and the guy who called that incredible 1979 Daytona 500. Now, most of America was snowed in on that day for the first ever live flag-to-flag network broadcast of a stock car race. And when the ratings were in, it was astounding. That race pulled a better rating than the Olympics. It was almost an impossible thing to have happen. Richard Petty won, and then there was a fight on the backstretch as the emotions boiled over. Allison, Yarborough, Ken explained, knew they had lost. But Squier didn't just call the race that day. He persuaded CBS to run it live flag to flag. Without his effort, that 1979 Daytona 500 may well have never made air. Without his brilliant call of the event, it just wouldn't have been as good to watch and listen to. As important as that 1979 race was, it's the collective calls of thousands of races that are the real legacy of Ken Squier. He is the greatest storyteller auto racing on television has ever seen. Long before anybody else understood it, Squier realized that racing is really entertainment. An engaging conversationalist, he brought the sport's heroes home with stories of these people who, when he talked about them, came out larger even than they were in life, and they were pretty damn big in life. Ask anyone, and they'll tell you that when Ken Squier was CBS anchor, as the voice of the Daytona 500, that was by far the best auto racing broadcast of the year. I was fortunate enough to work a couple of those races that Ken anchored, and I also attended the meetings. Lots and lots and lots of meetings. And what I remember most from them, in fact, it's the only thing I remember from them, is when Ken Squier spoke, everybody else in the place shut up. They all listened to him, if not to each other. Director Bob Fishman once told me that for decades, CBS relied more on Squier than anybody else in making judgments about what the Daytona 500 broadcast should look and sound like. Ken Squier's Motor Week Illustrated was the first auto racing news broadcast to appear on television. The show was later copied and imitated by ESPN, which called their version Speed Week. Then came TNN's Race Day and so many others. If you remember those Motor Week shows, you may wonder why so many of today's racing news broadcasts just aren't as good. And I can tell you why. They don't have Ken Squier and his partner, Fred Reinstein, behind them. There have been so many successes, so many contributions. The Winner's Show, the Darrell Waltrip Show, and other original programming for which Squier was responsible. Along with Jim Foster and Roger Bear, Ken Squier founded Motor Racing Network, which today boasts hundreds of radio stations that carry racing's broadcasts. So much of this stuff, Motor Racing Network, Motor Week, the storytelling, has created the foundation from which the enormous popularity of American stock car racing has grown. Ken also operates 5 radio stations in what he likes to call Radio Free Vermont. A favorite Saturday morning show, music to go to the dump by, It's entertainment all the way, just the way he's done it on television and just the way he's done it at his racetrack. He lives in Vermont with his wife Elizabeth, a herd of sheep, and a collection of border collies that keep the sheep moving. A long list of racers have benefited from his counsel. An equally long list of folks with offices in Daytona Beach, Florida, have benefited from his advice. Mike Joy and I are enormously grateful for the breaks he provided that got us into big-time television, but we, Ken Squier, are more grateful for the role model you provided. For so many of today's television racing announcers, the guy each broadcaster seeks to imitate, copy, and steal from is Ken Squier. In the business of auto racing on television, Ken Squier is the man. So as we gather today to honor the 2002 class of near inductees, it is so appropriate for Ken Squier to join the elite group of those who have accomplished so much. He deserves to be in this hall in three ways: as a promoter, as an announcer, and as a man behind the scenes of so many brilliant television decisions. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for all you have done for this sport and all of this in this room, and congratulations.
Jesus, John, I'm glad that was the short version. Oh, my heart. I'm humbled, truly, because I really don't deserve to be here. The previous candidates that were here definitely deserve to be here. And some of the folks that gave the nominating addresses deserve to be here because they are the ones who have made the difference and have really brought us all together. I'm just, as Bergman says, just a storyteller. But I'm pleased and proud to have that pedestal and share with you for a moment my feeling about what you people have done here today to honor those drivers that you have so respectfully treated in the manner they deserve. They deserve it, and you deserve it. I've often felt, and one of my basic premises, if I ever get the book done, is that there's a false sense in America about what particularly stock car racing was all about. I was so glad that John Fitch was here today because there's another piece of this I want to get back to. But as far as stock car racing is concerned, we hear over and over again how it was born in the South among some whiskey runners. And all of us that sit here today and have loved this sport from the time we were kids know that's horse plucky. That indeed, in the state of Vermont from whence I came, when all that energy came back from World War II, when the Rennie Charlans came home from the hard work of World War II in the Pacific and the Atlantic, that's when a golden period of motorsports happened in this country. In the state of Vermont, tiny little state, at that time less than 500,000 people, there were 20 racetracks, weekly tracks, 22 in counting the two fairgrounds. In 1945, the first AAA national championship race in the United States was run in Essex Junction, Vermont. I don't know, I was 7 or 8, and my hero, Ted Horn, beat Lee Waller by about 5 feet. All throughout this part of the world, you know the story of the McCabe's up in Maine. You know the stories of the Cheshire Fairgrounds in Keene, New Hampshire when it ran the sprint car races in the 30s. You sure know the stories of when the midgets packed Boston Garden back in the 30s. We have a great history and a great tradition. But the sense that what became American stock car racing happened in one part of the country just isn't true. And the fact that you folks take a Sunday afternoon when there's this big football game and you come together to honor the people that you have today and the ones you've honored in the past like Bugsy tells me that there's something so special in what you're doing, and I hope you don't forget it. I hope you realize what an important thing it is that you're doing. that there's a texture here, that you're welding things together, you're making memories for yourselves and for others. If there's one thing racing has lacked, it's been that sense, that business of having a story to tell. I've always thought that was the best part of it. Stock car racing was always the sport of the folks. The late Gene Shepard said thoroughbred racing was the sport of kings and American stock car racing was the sport of friends. And that's what you are here today. And you are sharing this time with true American heroes. And the beauty of racing, of all these people you have seen talking about Johnny Thompson and those drivers of the past, is it's all knitted together by you. These are our heroes. They were local heroes. And you can go from the Northeast to the Northwest and you will find people that believe in this sport just as much as you do, love it just as much, and have their heroes too. The Southeast got a little bit of a break. They didn't have the Red Sox. They didn't have anything except Georgia Tech and the Crimson Tide. And so therefore some folks in the Carolinas formed the Carolina Press Bureau, run by a fellow named Jim Foster, and the brilliance of Bill France, and they had their own sport, and it was our sport. But had it been turned around, and you heard what Mike was talking about, when you couldn't get an inch in the Hartford Courant, and if you wanted anything in a Boston paper, forget about it. My, how those times have changed, because we were in the world of the established press. We had the Ivy League, and we had the Red Sox, and we had baseball down to Washington and out to St. Louis and up to Chicago, and that was proper organized sports. And thank God there were some good, clean drunks like the Pulitzer Prize winner Henry McLemore and some of his wild and crazy buddies that hung out with France, and they got out there and found out there was something else, and this was part of it. And I guess the best reward, along with what you folks from NEAR have done for me today, is to see happen what Bill France told me when he hired me in 1964 or 5, back in there somewhere. I was just another snowbird that went down there to do something. And he said, you know, Mr. Salesman was France Sr. He said, you know, you're getting into something here. By the year 2000, this will be one of the biggest sports in the United States of America. Sure. Bill was wrong by about 6 months. And everyone in this room probably believed in '65 just as much as he did, that that day would come. Finally, again, wanting to thank NEAR and thank all of you for sitting so patiently and listening so carefully. And I don't want to belabor this, because I think probably the kidney award goes to at least 12 of you out here today that look like you're just about doubled up. So, but I hope you'll take that home with you today, that this is a sport we can be bloody proud of because of the kind of people that you have met today. No one tougher than McCabe except maybe Dragon, or Charland, or Bugsy, or any of the names that you have heard here today. So I'm just really shocked that you would include me in this group, and I truly don't believe I deserve to be here. I thank you for this opportunity to talk to you for a moment or two about something that all of us here in New England love and care so much about, and only hope that we will come out of this room and look to greater groups in the future who will know and understand that the American way, the true American way of going forward, is what this sport has been about from the very beginning, and it is the toughest sport. Thank you so much for this opportunity and this recognition today.